The shack is one of the oldest things in Dead by Daylight that are still in the game to this very day. This structure predates quintessential parts of DBD like for example perks, character progression and even the blood web. And so with the shack being this old, it should come as no surprise that it has received a lot of changes throughout the years, and yet it has remained to be one of the strongest structures for the survivor side. From all realms featuring the same shack to almost every map having its own unique shack design, in this video we're going to take a look at the evolution of the shack in Dead by Daylight. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. If we take a look at some very early concept art from the Dead by Daylight artbook, we can clearly see that the shack had been very well planned out from the very beginning. However, in this picture the orientation of the windows and the doorway are a little bit different from what we have in the current versions of DBD. Well, when taking a closer look at early alpha gameplay, you can notice that the shack had not one but two window vaults. This stayed the same for the beta testing stages of the game, and eventually some clever players found out that survivors could pretty easily abuse this setup, as at that time there was no entity blocker, no bloodlust, and the difference between survivor and killer vote speeds was much bigger than how it is today. All of these factors made the shack an infinite loop, and it was clear that things couldn't stay like this for long. So, thankfully for the official live release of Dead by Daylight, one of the window vaults was replaced with the god palette that we all know today. At this point there were three realms that existed in the game: the Macmillan Estate, Coldwind Farm and Autohaven Wreckers. All of the maps in those realms featured the shack as a structure in them, and in fact in some of them the shack was the only building that could spawn there, as is still the case with maps like Rotten Fields and Wrecker's Yard. A really interesting and cool fun fact about the original shack was that its rooftop featured a big hole in it, which according to the DBD Wiki was a remnant from earlier concepts of when the killers could all reach the rooftop and use that hole to drop down into the shack and ambush survivors. This could have also been a remnant of parkour gameplay elements that the developers were originally intending to implement in the game. However, this idea was ultimately scrapped. Though that hole could have simply been put there as a way for the generator lights to not clip through the roof of the shack. Additionally, during the early versions of the game, the rooftop also had collision and a nurse could blink on top of it from a nearby hill, which is no longer possible. Up to this point, all maps in the game featured the shack as a structure in them, including the Crowdspren Asylum. However, this would soon change with the addition of the Halloween chapter, as Haddonfield was the first ever map in Dead by Daylight to not have that building in it. Funnily enough, if we take a look at the Spotlight trailer, we can actually see that the map was originally intended to have one. Furthermore, early unreleased iterations of Haddonfield also show that the shack was supposed to be located somewhere on one of the playgrounds. However, supposedly the license holders weren't happy with this and they didn't want to see this ugly structure on the map. Over the course of the next few years, more and more maps were introduced to the game, with all outdoor ones having a shack and all indoor ones not having a shack. One of the most important updates to this structure, however, was made with the implementation of the Chains of Hate chapter in Dead by Daylight, as this one added the first ever custom shack in the game that has its own unique special textures and isn't just a copy-pasted version of all of the other shacks. However, this update was not only revolutionary because of the shack's visual update, but also because of the addition of breakable walls to the structure. During the PTB, the breakable wall was actually located in between the pallet and the window vault. However, this made the otherwise god pallet very unsafe, and so the location of the breakable walls was changed to be between the two lockers for the live release of the update. When the Chains of Hate chapter came out, people started to think that from that point on, all of the shacks in new maps would now come with a breakable wall, though as we all know this did not happen. Something interesting however is that the developers made a few maps, those being Mount Ormond Resort and Sanctum of Wrath, in which the shack has two possible spawn locations, instead of just being confined to a single set spawn location like on every other map. This is in my opinion a really interesting design choice, however it adds a lot more randomness to the maps, which I'm not fairly certain how I feel about. Also today this feature is no longer present on Ormond and instead can only be witnessed on the Sanctum of Wrath map. Nonetheless, during late 2020 the developers started introducing the Realm Beyond updates, aka massive visual overhauls of almost all of the game's assets, props, environments and characters. These reworks were implemented over the course of a few years, and whenever an old map got reworked, its shack would also receive a new special variation different from the other ones. The shack in the Coldwind Farm realm even became corner tech proof. Also, new maps added after these reworks would also feature a special and unique shack variant, with the Garden of Joy map becoming the first one in the game to have a shack that has a set rotation which doesn't change no matter what iteration of the map gets randomly generated. One thing, however, that I really do not like about all of the new shacks is that most of them have so much clutter and weird random collisions around them that sometimes cause you to get stuck on the tiniest of objects. Also, some of them, like the Batham Preschool and the Dead Dog Saloon ones, are very weirdly elevated off the ground, which also makes looping them feel very not smooth, I guess you could say. Nevertheless, I got a little sidetracked there, let's get back into the video. On the 7th of March 2023, with the long-awaited Red Forest visual rework, the shack received yet another new special variant for the two maps in that realm. With this in mind and the fact that there is only one of the original Dead by Daylight realms that has not yet been updated as part of the Realm Beyond update, that being Backwater Swamp, this means that the swamp maps are the only ones left in the game which contain the original version of the shack. I am personally looking forward to the swamp rework, but not because I hate the gameplay aspects of Backwater Swamp. In fact, I like how unique some of the swamp's aspects are. For example, the little increases in elevation towards the edges of the map are really cool in my opinion. Instead, I'm interested to see what the developers will do with these reworks, because I'm certain that they could make the swamp look really cool and interesting with all of the new resources they've got. Though on the other hand, I think it's kinda sad that the swamp is currently the only remaining part of DBD's original art style, and after it gets reworked, there will pretty much be no more remnants of that in-game anymore. So yeah, it is kind of a give and take situation, I guess you could say, but nonetheless I digress. Currently, the only original version of the shack in the game is the one in the swamp maps, and this is all subject to change once the developers rework the Backwater Swamp realm. Also, is it just me or have the developers changed the Pale Rose map, since I swear I've never seen these trees spawn here before, cause you know, the middle of the map is usually just full of boxes and filler pallets. Let me know what you think about all of this down in the comments and whether you've noticed anything different about the swamp maps in general. As of the Red Forest rework, the shack has received no major changes and has stayed relatively unchanged since then. And this is where our story ends. Well, yeah, I guess that was it. We went through the entire evolution of the shack structure in Dead by Daylight. I really hope you guys found this video interesting. Let me know if you still enjoy these DBD history videos by leaving a like down below, and also I would be glad if you considered subscribing as well. Anyways, thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!